Okay, let's talk about family court. It's a place where decisions are made every single day that can change lives forever. But what if the most powerful force in that room is something you can't even see? Today, we're going to pull back the curtain on bias in the family court system.
You know, if you've ever been through it, or you've watched a friend or family member go through it, you've probably asked this question. Why does it feel like such a gamble, like a lottery? How can two families with almost identical stories walk out of that courthouse with wildly different results? I'm telling you, you're not imagining it. The system itself can feel completely random, and the stakes, well, they couldn't be higher.
And here's the answer. It's because family court, at its core, isn't just about dusty law books and legal precedent. It's about people. It's messy, it's emotional, and unlike, say, a business contract dispute, it's almost entirely driven by a judge's perception of human beings. And that very human element, well, that's what flings the door wide open for bias to come walking right in. So let's break down exactly how that happens.
So what is it about family court that makes it so different? What makes it so uniquely vulnerable to these hidden forces and quiet influences?
Honestly, it's like a perfect storm. You've got judges with this enormous power to make calls based on their gut feeling, who seems more credible. And they're doing this under insane pressure, sometimes juggling 20, 40, even 60 cases in a single day. Think about that. A decision that will shape a child's entire future can be made in just a few minutes based on a tiny snapshot of a family at the absolute worst moment of their lives. This is not a system with a lot of checks and balances against bias. In fact, it's a system that practically rolls out the welcome mat for it.
So, when we talk about bias, how does it actually show up in the courtroom? It's not just one thing. It's probably easier to think of it as having three different faces. You've got the subconscious one, the mental shortcut, and the one that's built into the system itself.
First up, let's talk about implicit bias. Now, this is the stuff that's happening in the background, the automatic connections our brain makes based on a lifetime of cultural messages and stereotypes. The thing is, we all have these. It's part of being human. The real danger is when these subconscious biases go completely unchecked in a place like a courtroom where they can have absolutely profound consequences.
And just think about how this plays out, right? A mother's tears might be seen as proof that she's a caring, loving parent, but a father's visible frustration, that could easily be misinterpreted as a sign of an anger problem. A parent who can speak calmly and clearly might just seem more safe than a parent who's overwhelmed and struggling to find the right words. These aren't necessarily conscious judgments. They're lightning-fast mental shortcuts that can lead to devastatingly wrong conclusions about who a person really is.
Now, building on that, we have our second type, cognitive bias. This isn't so much about stereotypes as it is about how our brains try to be efficient, especially when they're totally overloaded. Remember those judges with dozens of cases a day? Well, that kind of pressure forces the brain to take shortcuts to process everything. And those shortcuts, they can lead to some major systematic errors in judgment. So let me paint you a picture of how this can go so wrong. A judge hears one negative thing first. That's anchoring bias. Then their brain might start subconsciously looking for any piece of evidence that proves that first impression right. Hello, confirmation bias. They might see one mistake, just one, like a parent showing up late to a single meeting, and let that one bad thing color their entire perception. That's the Horns effect. But you know, maybe the most powerful and dangerous of all of these is demeanor bias. Yeah, looking at this it's chilling. A parent who is going through the absolute trauma of having their family ripped apart might seem agitated or maybe emotionally distant. It's a normal human response, but in the bizarre artificial world of a courtroom, that can be so dangerously misread as aggression or instability or even that they're lying. The parent who can just put on a calm, cool, and collected front, no matter what their actual parenting skills are, is often handed a huge, unfair advantage. And finally, we get to systemic bias. And folks, this is the big one. This isn't about what's going on inside any single person's head. This is about bias that has been baked into the very fabric of the court system itself, in its rules, its culture, and all of its unwritten assumptions.
This is where unfairness just becomes routine, where it seems normal. A low-income family can't afford a babysitter, so an older sibling looks after the younger one after school. The system doesn't see a family finding a way to make it work, it sees neglect. Or a parent with a physical disability who is a fantastic, capable caregiver might be wrongly assumed to be unfit. See, it's not about one bad judge, it's about a whole system whose normal way of doing things is fundamentally broken for some people.
So all these different biases, they aren't just abstract legal ideas. No, they have real, tangible, and often devastating costs. and not just for the families involved, but really for all of us.
Let's actually try to put a number on it. Just think for a second about all the extra court fees, the mandated classes and evaluations, the lost wages from having to fight a bad decision that was flawed from the very start. What do you think that number is?
Over $100,000. A single biased decision can financially wreck a family, pushing them into a spiral of debt and instability that can haunt them for years and years.
And the costs? They don't stop there. There's this huge ripple effect. When families are broken up by bad decisions, they often need more public support. Their kids might struggle in school, needing extra help. And the courts themselves? They get completely bogged down trying to fix the mistakes they made earlier. A biased family court system is a massive, hidden drain on public resources. At the end of the day, everybody pays the price.
Okay, I know. That was a lot of heavy information, and it can feel pretty overwhelming. But the story doesn't end there. It can't. Because understanding the problem is always the first, most critical step toward actually fixing it. So, how do we even begin to search for fairness in a system that seems practically designed for bias? Well, here's the thing. The antidote isn't trying to find judges who have zero bias. That's impossible. They're human. The real solution is to build a system that actively manages bias. We can require judges to write down the exact reason they made a decision, forcing them to rely on facts, not just a gut feeling. We can train everyone in that courthouse to recognize what a trauma response looks like so it isn't misinterpreted. Even simple tools like checklists can interrupt those dangerous mental shortcuts right in the heat of the moment. The key is to build transparency and structure right into the system. Ultimately, it really does come down to this simple idea. Bias is inevitable. It's just a part of how our brains work. But allowing that bias to go unmanaged, unchecked, that is a choice, and it's a catastrophic one. We can't eliminate human error, but we can and we must build a more just, a more transparent, and a more intentional system. Because when a child's entire future is on the line, leaving the outcome to chance is simply not an option. Thanks for watching.